Welcome back. 23 minutes after the top of the hour. How did a former Taliban official get accepted into one of the most prestigious schools in America, Yale? And why is the school's lack of inclusion in other areas like the military, ROTC, stuff like that, have some folks calling foul? Yale
alum and former Army captain Flagg Youngblood joins us. He is an officer for the Young America's Foundation and attended Yale. Also, when you sat down, we were talking about how a guy with a fourth-grade education can...
This Taliban guy.
Yeah. Can get into Yale University. I assume it was a little more difficult for you?
Yes, it was. I actually was waitlisted at Yale and finally got in, but Yale went out and recruited Mr. Ratamala and brought him back to Yale. The dean of admissions met with him and said he was a force to be reckoned with.
And with the fourth-grade education, the dean meets with him, has an interview, and this is what Dean Richard Shaw says. When I first met him, I was a little anxious. My perception was, it's the enemy. But the interview was one of the most interesting I've ever had, and I had a sense, walked away with a sense, whoa, this is a person to be reckoned with, and who could educate us about the world.
And I just think that goes to show Yale's biases, like we were talking about before. When university did everything it could to push the military away, and when I was an ROTC student there, I was treated like a redheaded stepchild. I really was. And as were other ROTC cadets that were there at the time, and as they continue to be. But yet Yale threw its arms open to this member of the Taliban, our enemy, and said, come in, you could teach us something. I mean, how back up, how screwed up is that?
Well, you might not have been waitlisted had you put down you were Al-Qaeda on your resume. Yale University did not want to release an official statement to us. The dean was not available for comment, but it just speaks volumes, the fact that they're welcoming with open arms this guy who is in the Taliban, because Harvard got somebody on par with him, and they didn't want to be one-upped again. And yet, how far, when you were in ROTC, how far would you have to go from Yale to do your business?
Well, I'd have to go to University of Connecticut, which is 70 miles away, one way. So it's a 3-hour commitment for students that want to serve their country to go off and to do so and to learn how to do so.
Because Yale is so
it's absolutely anti-military. They're a party to a lawsuit right now in the Supreme Court, Rumsfeld versus Fair. They filed a front of the court brief and said they want to keep military recruiters out of their law school. So the Yale as an institution is made quite clear where it stands in terms of its patriotism to this country. Right. It said, we don't want to deal with the military and the things that defend our nation, but yet we want to bring in the enemies of our nation to try to, I guess, subvert our nation.
So this is a man who was an officer in the Taliban. He was a go-between between Mullah Omar and the President of the United States. He himself spent time with bin Laden. You would assume that this guy could be classified as a fighter, as the enemy, yet Yale, it sounds like, is treating the ROTC people as the enemy.
It's just the world turned upside down. The enemy is our friend, and our friend is our enemy. I don't think that would read well, obviously, with most people in this country. It hasn't read well with me. That's why I've done a lot of work to try to restore the military back to campus.
Let me ask you about, now that this guy with the fourth-grade education has gotten into Yale, they're saying, but wait, he's got a 3.3 GPA.
Well, I mean, civil wrongs don't make it right. I mean, good grief. Yes, exactly. He's going to get an expert grade.
Do people get a lot of C's?
Well, I certainly think so. But, in his case...
So perhaps be smart enough to be attending there and just simply be...
Well, it could well be, but I'm questioning why he's there in the first place. Why did our State Department let him in? And then, more importantly, why did Yale wish to bring him in? I mean, it just shows the university would prefer to be out there, I guess, helping our enemies more so than helping us as a nation.
What if you were taking a class and he was sitting right next to you? What would you say to him?
I'd say, I think you should probably be off in Guantanamo Bay. I'm not very comfortable with you being here. Honestly, I mean, this is just, it's outrageous again to me that my university would make such an overtly political gesture towards an enemy of our nation and do so much to push away the people that wish to defend and support our nation.
It does seem crazy. Former Captain Flagg Youngblood, who is now working for the Young American Foundation.
Yes, I've gone to work for Young America's Foundation precisely to combat things like what Yale is doing. Across our campuses, all over the nation, students see bias like this.
Right.
One of the things that Young America's Foundation does is it reaches out to students to try to make sure that they have seen the full spectrum of thought that's out there.
Excellent. What's your website?
It's www.yaf.org.
Excellent.
All right. Thank you very much, Flagg.
Thank you.